Hi, this is Holly Anderson, and the quote I have for you today is from Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "The time is always right to do what is right." And I like that quote. To me, it says there's no excuse for doing something that you know is wrong. And if you're tempted or you think, oh, I can just do this one thing, you know it isn't right, don't believe that excuse that you give yourself. The time is always right to do what is right. I remember when I was in the 6th grade, and I remember feeling like I really knew math really well, and I was doing this math test, and I was done with the math test, and I thought, oh, I've got 100% on this math test. I was pretty proud of myself, but before I turned it in, I happened to glance over at my neighbor, and I saw that the last question, she had written down a different answer than me, and I thought, she got that wrong. And then while I was sitting there, I looked at mine, and I read the question over again, and I realized that she was right and I was wrong. And I wanted that 100% so bad that I switched it and I turned it in. And so I ended up cheating on that test on that last question because I wanted that 100% on my math test. And then I got home and the guilt just drove me crazy. I couldn't sleep that night. And I knew what I had to do. I knew that I needed to make it right. And it was so hard. In 6th grade, you're only 11, 12 years old. And I went to my teacher the next day during lunch, so it was just him and me. And this was a really intimidating teacher anyway, actually, and my 6th grade math teacher. Most people were afraid to talk to him, and I was very afraid at this point. I had these visions in my head of him ripping up the test. And I was like, you know what? The worst thing that could happen is he rips up the test and I get a 0 or something on the whole test. So I got the courage to go to my teacher during lunchtime and tell him what had happened and that I had cheated on the math test. And I remember being really scared, but his reaction was actually very different than what I had anticipated. He said that he was proud of me for ultimately being honest and telling him that, and he knew that it was really hard to come up to him and tell him that I had cheated. I remember him taking the test and just being so afraid that he was going to rip it up in front of me. But he didn't rip it up. He actually said, you know what? You know the right answer. And he said that he was impressed that I had come to him and impressed with my honesty and proud of me that I had done that. And so he said, you know what? This one time, I'm just going to leave it at 100%. Not that I deserve the 100%, but I was very taken back that he would even do that. And I learned from a very young age that the time is always right to do what is right. Something's gone wrong or something's hard, something's difficult, you will always be blessed, and it'll always be easier in the long run when you do what is right, when you know what is right. So remember that this week. The time is always right to do what is right.